Big applause for Laura Jackson. Laura, first of all, how are you? That's an important question because, I mean, it's a question that we always do to all the people that we meet, but before COVID, probably, we never listened to the answer. But during the COVID pandemic period, we discovered that how are you is not just a common question, but it's something very important. So my question is real and is for you. How are you tonight?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm very well, and I'm very happy to be with you and to be with all these people tonight in the FIDA Arena in Milano. Laura, the first question for you, can you give to us and to our audience a global perspective on corporate well-being? At the end of the day, what is well-being and what it should be, and what is happening from your perspective around the world, speaking of well-being?
Not a problem at all. So let's get started. I'm afraid in English because my Italian is very poor.
You speak Italian. We can try.
So I'll start off by saying the definition that I use for well-being is I describe it as a state of balance that consists of having the appropriate resources, opportunity and commitment needed to achieve optimum health and performance for you, the individual, and in turn the organization. More simply put, it is about helping your employees to thrive, to really feel comfortable, contented and healthy, not just feel like they're going to work and just about surviving. Now, I would say there is no perfect science about what is included in well-being, as each person naturally has a different subjective viewpoint on how satisfied they are with their life, how they feel, and how they function. Just like you asked me, how are you today? I could ask any one of you in the audience, how is your well-being today? And how was it yesterday? And you're probably likely to give me two different answers. And that is because well-being is on a continuum, constantly changing. The key with corporate well-being is that you as a company are really trying to seek to support your employees to improve their well-being and really help them thrive. Now, this can be done in a number of ways. A few examples would be things like education and training, doing awareness sessions, direct interventions in particular services, offering relevant support, psychological possibly, ensuring your policies and procedures are smart and efficient, and being fair and equitable in your career opportunities. So you asked the question about what should be included in well-being. And again, I would say that for each of your companies, you may have different priorities. And some of these areas may be more important than others. But for me, it's still key that you start to discuss all these elements to ensure a holistic well-being approach. So I'll just talk you through the areas that I think you would probably want to consider. So first of all, there is physical well-being. So this is a focus on your personal health. So you should look at areas like sleep, nutrition, diet, exercise, hydration, how much water content you're taking every day, and look at ways to mitigate serious illnesses such as cardiovascular disease or maybe diabetes. So that's physical well-being. Then we move on to something called mental, or sometimes people call it emotional well-being. And this is about your attitude and your reactions to life. How do you cope with challenges? Here, the focus should be on things like confidence, purpose, drive. Are you resilient and are you motivated? Next, I would suggest you look at financial well-being. Here, the focus should be on financial security. How much freedom do you have with your finances, and are they growing? And are you taking account of future planning? Here, you could look at items like your pension or retirement, your budgeting, mortgage, debt consolidation, your savings, and possibly your life assurance. The next key area is social well-being. Here it's very important to focus on healthy relationships. Are you getting the support you need from your colleagues and your line manager? And are you connected with society in some way, maybe in the community? I would say here the key question to ask is, are you really being your true you at work? So this is about improving equity, diversity, and inclusion. And if you have a particular group that focus on this, it might be well worth getting them involved in some of the social well-being elements. Next, I would say it's about environmental well-being. So focus on your natural surroundings and your environment. Here we look at things like water and air quality, climate change, occupational risks that may exist in your business, diseases, access to healthcare, and infrastructure. One example I think here is good to look at is when you look at the number of people that are now smart working and home working, does the individual have the right ergonomic setup at home? Is their desk, is their chair, are they well supported? And also, do they have natural light when they're working from home? And lastly, I would touch on occupational, or sometimes called career well-being. And here this is a focus on the satisfaction in your day-to-day work and on your career. Here we need to look at things like, what are your prospects? What's your career development? Are you finding harmony at work and achieving a good work-life balance? If you also have the ability, I would suggest you look at real-time technological usage amongst your employees and assess what work expectations are around availability in the evenings and at the weekend. You should be aware that these well-being areas do not stand alone. There's a lot of interlinkage between them. For example, many financial problems do end up causing mental health issues. Now, the question across the world, these well-being areas will potentially differ in significance. Health risks, for example, would naturally differ by country based on various socio-economic factors. For example, diet will play a part as to whether you need to do diabetes education. There are certainly some regions where diet is not as good as it should be, and other areas where diet is very good. And although stress does not have any country borders, you do have to consider the cultural differences. So what is the willingness and attitude to discuss mental health and even finances? This will be very different by country. I would also add as a final point here that compliance legislation in the wellbeing area does vary quite substantially by country, and you really do have to take account of that when putting together your wellbeing strategy.
Thank you, Laura. It was amazing to listen to all these things about well-being. And later, when we present our research, we will also understand how we integrated all these areas in the Italian situation and among the Italian companies. And I definitely love the sentence, the question that you did. Are you the real you at work? This is an important question. Siamo davvero noi stessi al lavoro? That's the focal question in the well-being, and that's very interesting. And I mean, you made my day with this question. So thank you very much, Laura. I have a second question for you. What are the concrete actions that we can plan to have a real strategy in our companies right now to implement a well-being strategy?
Okay, so I'm going to actually highlight for you what I believe are 5 key actions to think about. The first one is, people always say, why do I care about well-being? So it's very important that you understand the advantages of having a well-being strategy and a formal well-being program and communicate these to management. So I'm going to just touch on some of the advantages. There are many, but just to give you a flavour for the sorts of things that you should be saying. So it provides a much better employer value proposition. It has been proven that well-being encourages much more positive employee engagement and improved morale. Also, if you have a very good well-being programme, you will see reduced absenteeism and less presenteeism when people are in the office but really should not be. You will see enhanced productivity, reduced long-term health costs, although in the short term, these might go up, but that's not a bad thing. It means that people are much more conscious and focused on their health. And it also reduces risk. More importantly, and this is quite hard because it's not very easy to actually quantify, it builds trust in the employer. And the thing with well-being is you can't force people to do well-being, but by educating them and teaching them various and raising awareness, you empower employees to work towards a better state of personal well-being. So that's my first action. The second one is this, it touches again on this management buy-in. By understanding the advantages we've talked about, you can secure management buy-in and engagement from key stakeholders. I think Alessandro mentioned in Italian, although I wasn't quite sure, that COVID has acted as a catalyst to trigger more awareness from businesses about the importance of making investments in well-being. You really do need to find senior managers who understand this. They absolutely see the benefits, and if possible, would they be willing to share some personal well-being stories? Maybe they've, I don't know, in lockdown, taken up a new activity or learnt a better work-life balance, something that's powerful to share. Also, you do need to talk to your employees themselves. Get a bottom-up view on well-being and let them feed back to you on what they need. Use both the management and then the employees to co-create a well-being strategy that works for both. It's important to listen to that voice. The voice of your employees is very, very important. Also, by doing this, it's important to try and establish a couple of people who really believe in well-being and could be considered as well-being champions or ambassadors who also can help on the ground to drive well-being initiatives and boost engagement. The most important thing out of everything I say is that you must try and embed well-being into your company culture. But well-being should not be used as a substitute. You cannot solve the issue if there is too much work and too few people. Okay, you can't ultimately fix that with well-being. That's a key point. The third action is really to secure a budget. I can honestly say that it's very difficult, and I've tried, to deliver a proactive, meaningful, sustainable, ongoing year-by-year well-being programme unless you have appropriate budget. Because then you can use that budget to really be deployed in the right places at the right time, to encourage education and raise that awareness. And as I said before, this will then encourage positive well-being behaviours. The fourth thing I would say is make it very easy for people to find out information about well-being. If you can create a hub, like one place on the company intranet, maybe it's a well-being hub or it's a well-being area where you can house all of the resources, all of the educational material, maybe the stories from your management or stories from your employees. Maybe you undertake some team challenges, whatever it is, because people never know where to find the wellbeing information when they need it. So they might not have gone to a talk first off, and then they realize that actually something in their life happens. And if they know where to go, they can find that information. That's all about empowering those individuals to make these small changes in their well-being. And lastly, benefit data. So for me, this is fundamental. People are not very good at using the data at their fingertips. There's a huge amount of data available and management information from your employee benefits that currently exist today to help you to build a case for well-being. So by analysing your health data, maybe your insurance data, and HR data about maybe absence and attrition, you can really identify the areas of concern and therefore know what your top health risks are. Then you can roll out a program using that data, and if you're smart, you can then use that data again to better measure what the value of the investment is in well-being. Now, I think it might be useful here for me to just give you a really short example. So I worked out the average cost of somebody having cancer in our organisation. I worked out the medical cost, the long-term sickness cost, the cost of hiring a temporary support, maybe for that individual being off. And then I used the cost of just one person to justify a cancer screening program. By running a cancer screening program, we identified 3 cases of precancerous cells. So effectively, by quickly acting on that, we were able to effectively save the cost of that cancer, being a much, much larger cost. And I immediately could go back to management and demonstrate that. So I think that's a useful insight that you might like to think about in the context of your organization.
Laura, thank you very much for explaining us these 5 concrete actions and also to share with us this important case. The challenge of data in Italy, I mean, among HR, is a big challenge, not only in well-being, but generally speaking in HR. But I think we must fight and we must use data and we must build well-being strategies. Laura Jackson, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Thank you for your speech and for your advices. And again, have a good evening. And
thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Very nice to talk to everybody. Thank you.
Grazie a Laura Jackson. Ci ha portato nel mondo in cui dobbiamo andare, forse qualcosa che ci è apparso distante da dove siamo oggi parlando di well-being in Italia, ma ci ha portato nella direzione in cui dobbiamo andare.